Oh my goodness. Okay. Hey everyone, it's Garrison here, and welcome back to the Patreon, or the channel where we're currently watching from. And today, I'll be doing a follow-up thoughts and review video to Are You Next, a girl group survival show formed by JTBC, B-Lift Labs, and Hive. This one following up for specifically episodes 4 to 7. I know you guys really wanted me to do this, and you know, might as well, right? Before we get into the finale of things, I think in a separate video I'll talk about the final lineup, the group that debuts from this show, and all the rounds leading up into the finale, of course. Now, I've got to admit, so far, Are You Next? I've been really enjoying it, despite some frustrating moments here and there, due to the editing, due to how everything's played out in terms of like tempo wise, you know what I'm saying? Like the performances, the preparation before the performances are very straight to the point, not many fillers per se, and even on the off time separate from these full episodes, we get a good amount of variety to understand where are these trainees coming from, of course. But going back where we left off, episode 4, this is where we had the start of round 3, basically going off of Dream of You into 4 Walls and the performance of the boys. And all of us knew when it comes down to the team that was formed for the boys, straight up the Avengers team, very stacked and all. But I've got to admit, for this specific round, it was very questionable to come through with heel choreo specifically. In fact, I would say for this round and then into the next round, we had some questionable song choices that I would like to talk about. But straight to the point, Dream of You, I felt like Jimin, Mocha, and Ruka straight up carried that performance. You know, aside from that, there was quite a bit of mistakes, and you could see a lot of moments lacking within that performance, and all seeing how it carries on to 4 Walls with the fans. I really loved that team, specifically how the choreo played out in full. Jiwoo, Minju, and Hyewon stood out the most in that specific performance. And yeah, especially when Jiwoo got moved to the killing part instead of Iris, that was a relief. Like, I've got to admit, right, I was fine with the girls, like, you know, letting Iris show and prove, give her the chance, the opportunity to show what she's got, because they know what she's capable of. But, you know, unfortunately, in that moment, and even before, we saw Iris spiraling down with the wrong mindset, and having the sort of mindset of, oh, I don't really want to sing, I just want to dance, you know what I'm saying? Then why are you here in the first place? You feel me? So it was great seeing Jiwoo get that killing part. However, she wasn't really, you know, fully recognized during this moment right away. And this gets to my point where not many of these trainees are recognized until later on, the likes of Una, of course. But as we saw the results, it made sense. Team with the boys end up carrying on to having a good performance for the second part of round 3, which is, of course, the performances of My Bag, Tie a Cherry, originally by CL, and Money, of course. So the only song choice that was very off-putting for me was My Bag, without a doubt. Working, you know, original choreo and all, and considering, I would say, the age median per se for that group, that makes up for My Bag, right? Very popular song and all. I'm surprised that the stacked team didn't end up going for My Bag, but instead they went for Money. But it just ended up playing pretty well, right? Jimin, she suited the song the most, without a doubt. And Funa, low-key, she really delivered and carried herself well in the performance, and I think that moment was like, yeah, I really like Una, what she's showcasing so far in terms of her skill set. But it was somewhat difficult to enjoy due to the song choice. Like, sure, I can admit this is the point where we see good amount of improvement by Wanhee and others, but it just wasn't fitting, you know what I'm saying? So there's a huge difference in terms of like inappropriate like song choices and appropriate song choices. You feel me? You know what I'm getting at here. But then when we move into Money, right? Originally by Lisa, I thought Young So's vocal delivery was so on point. I thought the coaches had a good point in terms of Young So's vocal projection and all. And this is where we see even more of her skill set of in terms of like carrying out the right kind of expressions. Yeah, like she had it all during that performance, right? Iroha did her thing. Jungin as well. Jungin has become a more and more huge favorite for me as these episodes and rounds have progressed, not gonna lie. And then as we move on to Taya Cherry, I think this was low-key my most favorite performance, partly due to the song choice one. I know, super biased and all, but just how we had the Razi shots by Moa, right? Minju and Jiwoo and Himina came through with that performance, and I just love that I can tie a cherry. Look, I got a gold tongue type of moment there. So all in all, it was great. I think what was really clear to me is that if you don't like get that opportunity, like Aiki said in the very first episode of Are You Next, you're not gonna shine as much. I think also by default, if you get one of the lower parts, you're not gonna get as high of a scoring with the coaches in the mix specifically. Now, I feel like the overall dynamic is different when we have the audience in the mix when we get into the next round, of course. But for this, it was clear for the boys. Yena had a bigger part. She stood out a lot. Young So, right, despite having a smaller part, I thought she had a great presence. But then it happened vice versa with Yena and Young So for Money by Lisa and all. So it made sense on that note. And yeah, and at that point, I felt like Yena and Chanel were more than ready to debut, of course. Now, as we move on to the next round, pretty much from episode 5 moving on to episode 6 with the specialists and such, with vocal teams and dance teams, we get to see the performance of one vocal team consisting of Jiwoo, Yena, Wanhee, and Jungin. And not gonna lie, I really love the overall composition of this team and song choice. This is where it starts to get really, really good. Like episode 6 is like, oh my goodness, has to be one of my top favorite episodes from this show. Be sure to let me know your favorite episodes in the comments section down below, or moments. I felt like we can all agree to this. The line distribution was fitting for the members, yet beautiful. If I recall correctly, they had to decide on their own forefront on who got what and figure out what moments would work with each other and all. Vocal moments, harmonization was on point for that specific performance, and I'm glad that Yena overcame her mindset of wanting to perform Spark by Taeyeon instead, because we can see that like having that negative spiraling mindset and not being focused at the task at hand and trying to be more so positive of what you're being provided with in terms of a song can just end up getting you eliminated from this show in terms of that kind of extreme, am I right? And finally, within this performance, Jungin got some recognition from the coaches. Thank you, right? Jungin came through with that team and all, and Woozy was completely right on only speaking the truth of having great balance with this team, and how Yena was worrying for nothing and loving her vocal tone at the same time. So after that performance, we had the other vocal team for Spark, originally by Taeyeon, with Yewon, Chanel, Minju, Soyeon. As some of y'all may saw throughout the previous round into this round, we can see leadership being a huge thing, right? Whether that be Yewon, not really there in terms of the leadership skill set and all, and then you have Jiwoo, who's very natural at helping others and has those traits of being a leader for any team that she's a part of or group that she's a part of. So clearly Minju and Chanel brought their own flavor to the song. Their vocals were captivating throughout the performance. I felt like Soyeon carried her parts fairly well, and Yewon clearly just needs more time to improve and a lot more practice to improve her vocals and on how she carries herself on the stage. So I felt like the overall rearrangement too was off-putting for that specific performance of a song, not gonna lie, considering it didn't feel as impactful during the performance. And if you think about the original song by Taeyeon, it's very impactful with the powerful vocal work and arrangement and all. So it made sense for the team that performed Across the Universe to come out and win that specific round. And then we had the performances of Bang After School versus Tell Me by Wonder Girls, both classics, right? Really loving the song choice here. So for Bang After School, we had Youngso, Ruka, Moa, Iroha, and Hyewon, right? And this was overall drafted by Youngso herself. I felt like this was well considered because in terms of their performance, the coordination and chemistry were on another level. I felt like you need to be coordinated for a song like Bang by After School, right? It has that marching band kind of theme to the overall soundscape to the song. And yeah, Youngso, Moa, Ruka nailed their performances. I especially loved Ruka during that specific performance, and Youngso. But despite the minor mistake by Hyewon herself, in terms of balance, if I recall correctly, I really enjoyed the original dance break that was integrated within their performance. Now we move on to the unexpected results and moments from Team Tell Me, Jihyun, Mocha, Jimin, Buna, and Himina. Honestly, one of my top favorite performances coming from this show. They completely did justice to the original song. No mistakes at all. Himina nailed the "Oh Mona" part and suited the song so well. And Jimin continued to showcase even more what she's all about within this particular performance, right? I felt like still at this point, Buna continues to be super underrated, even with this performance. And I agreed with the coaches that this specific team had more individual spotlights with the original choreography and all being set and highlightable moments from each and every single member, whereas Bang After School, sure, there was that coordination, but were there that many like kind of highlightable individual moments? So I thought Team Tell Me had that edge, of course, and of course they carried the song without any mistake. So it made sense for that team to come out on top, everyone. Now, as we move on to episode 7 here, there's quite a bit to talk about, right? Trainees had to choose which door they had to go through. Very misleading with the posters and pictures on the door. You'd think you'd get this specific song by 21 or one of their more so mainstream songs, or you would think, you know, by Oh My Girl you get their latest most trendiest songs, right? Nothing to take away from SSFWL. In fact, that's one of my top favorite songs by Oh My Girl. And then same goes for Red Velvet. You'd think you'd get that summery fun Red Flavor song and all, but instead they got Red Velvet's Irene and Solgi's Monster. Now this is the round where I felt like the arrangements for these songs were off-putting, right? But I felt like the members that carried on into this specific round came through and did pretty good job of coming with their own kind of, approach to the song, I would have to say. So for I Don't Care, we ended up with Minju, Youngso, Jimin, Jihyun, and Hyewon. Unfortunately, we couldn't get Chanel within this group. She really wanted to be part of this group, and we'll talk a little bit more about Chanel as we progress into this overall review. But for this performance, yeah, Minju and her vocal tone within this was so amazing, yet very distinct, right? Very distinct. You could really tell her apart amongst the others for this particular performance, and I felt like Youngso had a memorable presence. Jimin had her vocal moments, but the coaches were right about preparation, right? I felt like in terms of rehearsal or the time that they showed, they said, oh, you did better that time versus now. It makes sense because we saw how cool and relaxed they were. We could just do this then, we could just do this tomorrow, but at the end of the day, you still gotta prep really hard for your performances and all, right? So the only questionable side on the producer's end and just the pacing of this show, I do feel like all of these trainees are being overworked and having their work cut out for them, I've got to admit. Still enjoyed that performance as a whole. Now we move on to the team, right, for, of course, Purple. Team Purple had SSFWL by Oh My Girl. Lovely song and all, with Mocha, Wonhee, Soyeon, Himina, and Chanel, right? I felt like Mocha's most highlightable moment was clearly here, showcasing how multifaceted she is, and a lot of more improvement for Wonhee was shown in this performance, quite stable with her vocal work. And you gotta agree with Aiki in terms of different emotions being expressed during the performance. One member would be more so sad, one member would be more so cheerful, you know what I'm saying, in terms of the performance. So they weren't that cohesive together, and I really felt Chanel in that moment in terms of her frustration. I feel like people can get it twisted in terms of her frustration, and all, she has the very right to be frustrated and not getting her way and getting the song she wants. The only problem at the time is, seeing her go to the extent and spiraling down in terms of mindset and negativity is very troublesome and worrying, because at this point, if you continue to have this kind of mindset, especially this late into the show and in terms of rounds, you're hurting your image a lot in terms of votes, and that's speaking from an objective standpoint. Sure, the members heard her out, but nothing was really changed, you know what I'm saying? So I really hope she bounces back from this particular moment. I know right now she's still in a rut. Now for the third team, for the red team, we had obviously Monster by Irene and Seulgi of Red Velvet, Yena, Iroha, Jungin, Jiwoo, and Funa. Oh my goodness, I love the overall composition of this team. Yuna and Jiwoo, they had that one touching moment where Yuna was trying to express her concerns to Jiwoo, and Jiwoo was being understanding in that moment. It's like, okay, I'll back off, and because you are the leader, I'll let you lead more, because to be fair, Jiwoo naturally has those leadership skills, and she just wanted to help out the team and all. But when you got like two leaders at the same time, it's hard to, come through with the right kind of same direction as a team, you feel me? So it's great seeing that friendship and understanding come into play between the two of them. Can't express that enough, that I need to see at least these two within the same group with the likes of Jimin. But yeah, I would say this team, it made sense for them to come up on top because they were the most cohesive and well-balanced performance, right up there with that particular performance of the boys, or even Tell Me. Yuna completely fitted this concept like a glove. Jiwoo had her crazy moments, and don't even get me started with Funa. Finally seeing her get that recognition that she's been deserving of. Like, she had some great moments within the performance. The only thing is, like I said, the rearrangement, I felt like how it was done in more so the rock heavy route with it, they put too much the rock in rock, you know what I'm saying? It was too heavy with the overall rearrangement, that particular song. So aside from rearrangements and all, I enjoyed all three performances, but I did enjoy some performances more than each other, I've got to admit. So at this point, we had Youngso in the running, Jiwoo, Iroha, Jihyun, Jimin, Minju, and then Wonhee at 7th, Yuna at 8th, and Mocha at 9th, and Chanel at 10th. Overall, I'm really glad after this particular round, it was, well, it didn't conclude yet because we're gonna have to talk about the follow-up episode in a separate video in the finale review that I'm gonna do once it comes to that. But I was really glad to see Funa, Jungin, and Mocha getting recognition and their flowers for their performances. So aside from that, we know for those who've seen episode 8, Iroha so far is in the running, followed up by Jiwoo, Minju, Yuna, Youngso, and Wonhee. Now, if you were to ask me, am I completely fine with the final lineup here? Yes, right? I don't mind this final lineup, but, you know, to not have Jungin debut with the likes of Jiwoo or Jimin in the mix, I think that's, you know, something to be concerned about, because not everyone who doesn't make it here can come through and debut. They might have to pivot to another label. They might have to have a change in mind in their career path and all. And clearly, as we've seen so far, the likes of Funa can definitely prepare for a debut in the future, whether that be a Japanese girl group or a K-pop girl group. Soyeon, short period of time as a trainee, like 3-ish days coming into the survival show. It really goes to show the amount of talent that she has and all, right? So my point is, it's very tight-knit, more than before, and competitive. And for those who are ready, I want to see them debut. For those who are still improving, you know, they can debut, but the question is more so, do they need to debut right now? They have a lot more time on their hands to debut in this brutal industry where, unfortunately, if you're like 19, 20, 21, even that young still, it might be your last opportunity to debut. So I think this proposes a question for all of us to truly think about, right? Is Iroha best out from the minors and Himina? Yes, right? Are they better than most of the adult trainees? Not necessarily, right? Did Wonhee improve back in episode 4 and now with episode 7? Yes, she improved to the extent of being better, right? But not like than all of the adult trainees on the show, right? But, you know, I'm fine in terms of, like, if we have Youngso, Yuna, Minju, Jiwoo, Iroha, and Wonhee in the same group in the finale, right? I just feel like it's just too little for 6 members in this finale to debut in all 6 spots, right? I would totally see 7 and 8, and yeah, it's something to really think about. I'm not against in terms of any of these trainees, and I think for those who got eliminated, it makes sense in terms of the points that they got eliminated. I just hope to see some of them in the future to bounce back, but for those remaining more so minors, I feel like they're deserving of making it this far in the show. You feel me? And I was really glad to see Soyeon make it so far into this show. But aside from that, let me know your thoughts, guys. I'm enjoying this so far. Episode 8 was more so the off-putting episode. I can't fully agree with the attitude. I can agree with the decisions by the coaches, but their attitudes, stubborn attitudes, and strict attitudes, and not trying to be willing to hear out the trainees of like, okay, and make things like have like a healthy competition more so. It's very concerning, right? It's very concerning, and you can definitely see in terms of producers, they want to play their cards in a certain way, and yeah, that's the only concerning point for me, and especially Chanel spiraling downhill to the point where it's very difficult to see her bounce back and to make the finale. But aside from that, okay, so let me know your thoughts, everyone. I'm really interested of how you're feeling about this show, if there are any moments that you can relate with me and all. But be sure to like, subscribe, as it goes a long way and it helps out the channel so much. Just wanted to start connecting with y'all for Are You Next. Take care and peace.